What if I told you that every narrative has hidden messages of what the storyteller internally believed to be true about spirituality, self, and the world, whether they are aware of it or not? Edward Scissorhands is a modern retelling of an ancient myth. Like a suffering servant archetype, he descends into a society bringing beauty and healing, but is ultimately rejected by the very people he helps. I think this story is very similar to the sacrificial cliffhanger ending of the biblical narrative. Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Nat Tran. I like to movie and contemplate why does it movie and does it movie well. I study biblical narrative in my undergrad, and I'm also obsessed with how it has influenced the story we tell and how it has modern applications for humanity. So Edward Scissorhands is a fairy tale of a mechanical being with a cookie for a heart. It's a story of oddity and conformity, acceptance and rejection, love and betrayal. This film has Tim Burton fingerprint all over it. It's dark, gothic, satire, and dynamic. Besides the obvious reference to the Frankenstein story, another big influence is Beauty and the Beast. Viewers have also paralleled this to The Hunchback of Notre Dame, or The Phantom Opera, or even The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. Again, there's nothing new under the sun. It's the same narratives and ideas wrapped in a new package. This time leather. In Edward Scissorhands, we have a creator-inventor that made Edward out of his own love, yet Edward was unfinished.
What happened to you?
I'm not finished.
Oh!
So Edward was left with his own tools to figure it out by himself. And the theological term for this worldview is called deism. How the creator is like a clockmaker, and then sets creation to motion and then just steps back and ceases to intervene. Like Edward, many people feel like God has abandoned them or have withdrawn, or in the words of Friedrich Nietzsche, God is dead. We see this same pattern in movies like Hercules. And any view of God always reflect on how we view self. In all four stories, Edward, Frankenstein, the Beast, and Quasimodo was viewed as a monster of their story. They all ended up committing murder in the castle. In all four stories, the real monsters were hidden in plain sight. It was the doctor in Frankenstein, it was the hunter in the Beast, the master in Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the townspeople in Edward. These narratives kind of low-key shift the blame back on the absent or the evil creator. The story of Edward Scissorhands also has the archetype story of the outsider figure entering a community and transforming their lives and then leaves. Many faith accounts also has that tale of incarnation of a god. Most obvious one, Christianity, but it also has popular device in literature and theater. Movies like E.T. or Buzz in Toy Story or Superman, it's fascinating how Tim Burton chose to have this incarnation of Jesus as one of the wall inspiration for Edward. And did you notice how the bed looks like a manger with hay in it? And that's a very interesting choice. So with the invitation of Peggy, Edward comes down to live amongst the people. And I like how the film addresses conformity. We have an outsider, Edward, an artist living in the Gothic castle, dressed in all black leather with crazy hair. Now compare him to the neighborhood in their pastel cookie cutter house. And what does the first thing that Peg does with Edward? She had him dressed in Bill's clothes. Why? Because she wants him to look normal. When Peg puts makeup on him, which is one of the film's motif, Peg says to Edward,
And blend and blend. Blending is the secret.
further illustrating the film's theme of conformity. Edward is presented to us as the innocent and kind character. I think the theme of innocence is shown through cookies. We learn that the inventor has a huge cookie machine in his house, and Edward is the evolution of that machine. When Edward helps people in their cookie cutter house, they give him cookies in return.
You can't buy the necessities of life with cookies. You can't buy a car with cookies. Am I right, Jim?
Oh, that's true, sir. You can't.
And I think what Bill is ignorant of is that Edward is not motivated by money or greed. It's not what he values in life. For Edward, receiving cookies is enough. And so here are 7 ways I think in the movie people respond when confronted with the Edward archetype. When they encounter someone who is pure and innocent, a godlike character that causes us to change for the better. I would say Peg and Kim are 2 good examples of love and acceptance. Peg was searching for a client for her pyramid scheme, broke into his house and found him, while Kim found Edward by accident on her bed. And it made me thought of an old parable I learned a long time ago. In the biblical text, Matthew records that the kingdom of heaven is like a man that found hidden treasure by accident and sold all he had to buy the land. In the next parable, describes as a merchant looking for profit and found a pearl of great price and sold all he had to buy it. What's interesting about these parables is that one found it by accident while the other was searching for it, and both encountered something valuable enough that changed their lives. And that's what meeting Edward was like for Peg and Kim. Peg responded to Egg with hospitable love. She was the first person that welcomed Edward. And Peg doesn't fully understand Edward, but she treats him with kindness simply because he needed it. It was in the scene that she dropped her script and asked real questions.
What happened to you?
Instead of her salesman's voice. Kim represents people who first responds with a little skeptical, but then accepts. She was first fearful of Edward, but then she was able to see his heart. This completely changed her character and her heart. She was also able to discern the type of people she hung out with. The next character we encounter is Joyce. I consider this like an exploiting kind of love. Joyce tries to manipulate Edward for her own desires. She recognized Edward's innocence and attempts to use it. When rejected, she turned on him and caused the town to fear him. It's literally giving Potiphar's wife and Joseph in Genesis. When she could not sleep with him, she got him in prison. People like Potiphar's wife and Joyce sees love as something to be used and abused. Number 4, the shallow intention people who talked about helping him. 3 different characters said they want to help him, but never took any responsibility.
I know a doctor that might be able to help you.
I'd like to meet him.
We'll get that name after the show. Thank you very much.
Seems like everyone knows a doctor, but when helping requires effort, cost, or risk, they stop at just the words. This is a great example of those who say with their mouth that they want to follow Jesus, like the rich young ruler, but when it cost too much, he walked away sad. There's also an account of Jesus denying 3 people who asked to join him because Jesus knew it was just shallow words. Number 5, the crowd like him for what he can do for them. Edward loved serving others, and the community initially celebrated Edward when he benefits them. In the scene when he saved the little boy, the crowd was misunderstood and saw him as a threat. They all turned on him. By the way, his name means protector and guardian. But the mob is now out for blood, chasing him back into the castle. One might say he's pursued like a lamb to the slaughter. He was their servant, but now he is suffering. It is not hard to hear the echoing of crucify him. Number 6, Esmeralda, the strange religious fanatic who people ignored at first and now listen to as she demonized Edward. She represents this hyper-religious group that judges a book by its cover. It feels like such an odd addition to the story, right? But you see, it was also the Pharisees that demonized Jesus, and they were the one that convinced the crowd to kill an innocent man.
But it's not too late. You must push him from you, expel him, trample down the perversion of nature.
And lastly, number 7, Jim, Kim's boyfriend. He is the betrayer, even pursuing Kim for some time to be a part of the scheme. He is violent, rude, and plans a robbery. He sets Edward up to be trapped by security guards with the aim of having him arrested. Jim offers Edward a mocked kiss. And who does that remind us of? Judas, the man who betrays Jesus with a kiss. And both Jesus and Edward were not clueless to this. They were aware what was going on, but knew it had to happen in that way. I'm not sure how I feel about the ending. It's fascinating. Kim tricked the crowd to prove that Edward is dead by showing off his severed hand.
What are you trying to pull? Nothing.
Funny enough, there's also Jesus that also showed off his hands to prove that he was really dead and alive. Even though Edward had no resurrection story, it's still a new life story, and Kim is changed forever. And now she's to keep his memories alive. And as far as we know, she never saw him again. The screenplay returns us to where the film begins. Kim continued to tell Edward's story. And here's the sign of his presence. The ice shavings fall like snow, and in her imagination, the young girl again, she danced in the snow. The retelling of the story keeps Edward's story alive, and that includes ourselves and the audience. Similar to the myth about Jesus in the gospel, is that through eyewitness accounts that these stories impact those who read and listen to it. Tim Burton would never claim to Edward Scissorhands being a theological movie, let alone has biblical narratives.
Hello?
I was never scared by monsters. I was much more scared by real people. You know, I grew up with monster movies, and they were like my fairy tales.
However, Tim Burton draws from the deep wells of his heart and imagination, and even there, you'll find the yearnings for some kind of spiritual message. Joseph Campbell, an American writer that studies the meaning of stories, uses the phrase, the hero with 1,000 faces. I believe Jesus is one of those heroes that has become the universal figure through the story of his life, death, and resurrection, has become the symbol of human experience. And it's here in the final scene of the castle that we see a brush cut into a shape of a hand, maybe reflecting something he really wanted, hands. Or maybe it reaches out for something much greater, a symbol of humanity reaching out to encounter the Creator.
I'm going home.
Thank you so much for watching my analysis. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye now.